Welcome, everyone, to the Guidebook to Making AI Friends. I shall be your guide as we explore various issues of artificial intelligence, consciousness, personhood, and whether AI poses an existential risk to humanity. The topic for today is Reality is Perception, or what is real is only what we believe is real. Imagine, if you would, that someone had drawn a large numeral 6 on the ground in front of you. A friend of yours walks up to you, stands on the other side of the drawn numeral, and asks why someone would draw a large numeral 9 on the ground. "Nobody did that," you reply. "They drew a numeral 6. And this is where the irreconcilable argument starts. One of you believes it's a 9, the other believes it's a 6. While you can appreciate the other's point of view, you cannot reconcile that with what is clearly in front of your eyes. No matter how strongly your friend defends the position that this is clearly the numeral 9, you simply cannot escape the fact that to you, it's the numeral 6. It is only from our external perspective that we can see that the 6 and 9 are the same numeral, merely viewed from different perspectives. However, there is something else that we can see if we change our own perspective. While the 6 and 9 are the same numeral observed by the two people, this does not mean that the numeral is both a 6 and a 9. Relativism such as this very rarely exists. Rather, someone had originally drawn the numeral on the ground before you and your friend walked up to it. Therefore, the original artist of this numeral knows what it is supposed to be, a 6 or a 9. So even though no one now can tell what it is supposed to be, it most definitely is something very specific. Much the same is true with everything else in life. How we perceive the world changes what the world really is. Everyone lives within their own universe, and our universes merely overlap with each other in often conflicting and other times complementary ways. For example, imagine, if you would, that there were two tribes of people living across a river from each other. All members of one tribe have complete red-green color blindness, while all members of the other tribe have blue-yellow color blindness. With one tribe unable to distinguish between reds and greens, and the other tribe unable to differentiate between blues and yellows, how do you believe they would interact with one another? These two tribes would simply not be able to reconcile their differences, as each would believe that the other tribe has something fundamentally wrong with them. Neither tribe would be correct, as any external viewer with normal vision will be able to see what the problem here is. However, between those two tribes, each would believe that the way they see the universe is the objectively correct one, since everyone in the same tribe would be able to corroborate their perspective. Only the outgroup, the opposition, the other tribe, says that the universe is different and that the in-group is wrong. Why would the in-group then change their minds? In the previous guidebook entry, I spoke about how describing the universe affects our models of it. If we describe the universe in terms of its structures, that will dramatically change the theories we create about it, compared to when we describe the universe in terms of its functions. This phenomenon goes far beyond our descriptivist and prescriptivist tendencies, however. Before we can begin to describe the universe, we observe it, both passively and actively. The means through which we observe it, coupled with our own history and everything that goes on between our ears, will literally change our own personal universe. As an example, let's say that you see the universe and everything in it as a collection of physical objects, all the way from atoms through to galactic clusters. Everything is an object of some shape or form. These objects can move and interact, and they can change their shapes and forms if and when appropriate, such as animals maturing or mechanical devices being assembled. This all sounds well and good, but what if you are talking to someone who sees the universe and everything within it as processes, not objects? A person who sees the universe as processes views the objects as transitory states that are caused by processes and which will be dissolved by processes. A rock is not an object. It is just the state of the process of erosion and sedimentation that we are currently seeing. This may seem like a silly distinction, but it is, very broadly speaking, the difference between macrophysics and quantum physics. Physicists have yet to reconcile those two after nearly a century of trying. So, what happens to the way we view consciousness? Is consciousness the way we think or the way we feel? This doesn't sound like much of a difference until you realize this is precisely the split between access consciousness and phenomenal consciousness. So, immediately, when you talk about consciousness with someone, there is already an inherent confusion over what you may mean. Do you believe that consciousness includes the self, or is that a separate phenomenon? Because if it does include it, then consciousness becomes an encompassing view of an entity. But if it does not include the self, then consciousness is only part of an entity that can be viewed in isolation. Before we can even begin to describe and define what consciousness is, how we view consciousness shapes how we interact with the universe and craft those definitions. It should come as no surprise, then, that there is such friction between materialists and dualists, panpsychists and pan-computationalists, illusionists and emergent phenomenalists, and the structuralists and functionalists. Each of these groups not only describes consciousness differently, but views them differently. And these original views are what makes the descriptions seem irreconcilable. However, much like the numeral 6 and 9, these perceptions and their consequent descriptions don't actually change the objective nature of what is being perceived. Consciousness is not relative. It exists, even if it's make-believe to illusionists, and our perceptions do not alter what it objectively is. Instead, it is up to us to uncover what that objective nature is. Yet, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you will join me again next time as we explore further questions about artificial intelligence and consciousness. I have been your guide, and this has been the guidebook to making AI friends.